Hello and welcome. I'm Rawia Alami and this is the Dailies, where we take a look at important news stories, reports, analyses and articles published in newspapers and media outlets across the world. Most newspapers focus today on the upcoming summit between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska on Friday. Many opinion articles and news reports were dedicated to this summit, with many warning against over-optimism. Other news stories attracted the attention of American newspapers, especially such as President Trump's takeover of Washington, D.C.'s police and the deployment of the National Guard in the city, as well as the appeals court decision to allow Trump officials to withhold billions in foreign aid. We'll start with the Alaska summit, as after a hectic week of Ukrainian diplomacy aimed at presenting a united European position to President Trump regarding the Russian land swap proposal, many opinion articles delved into what should happen during this summit on Friday. David Ignatius published an article in the Washington Post emphasizing the delicate balance between seeking peace in Ukraine and ensuring Ukraine's sovereignty. Ignatius argues that while Trump is motivated to end the bloodbath, he must pressure Russia effectively and avoid a premature or even an unfair land for peace deal. Also drawing historical parallels to Eisenhower's Korean War diplomacy, the piece highlights the importance of combining pressure on both allies and also adversaries, securing enforceable ceasefires and providing long-term security guarantees. Ignatius underscores the urgency of a settlement, but warns that a hasty or unjust agreement could embolden Putin and threaten broader international stability. Also on the Alaska summit, Nicholas Kristof wrote in the New York Times asking President Trump to stop coddling Putin. The article criticizes Donald Trump's shifting stance on the Ukraine war, highlighting his recent decision to meet with Vladimir Putin instead of enforcing sanctions after a missed ceasefire deadline. While many Ukrainians want a negotiated peace, the planned summit held without President Zelensky risks rewarding Russian aggression by suggesting Ukraine should cede territory. Also, such moves or concessions could indeed embolden China over Taiwan and undermine U.S. strategic interests. The piece argues that Ukraine's fight serves American security, deterring authoritarian expansion. It also warns of catastrophic consequences if policy is mishandled. The article also ends with a plea: the U.S. must not abandon Ukraine midway in its struggle for sovereignty and freedom. In an exclusive, The Times revealed that U.S. and Russian officials, including Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff, have discussed a plan for Ukraine resembling Israel's occupation of the West Bank. Under the proposed model, Russia would control occupied Ukrainian territory, apparently militarily and economically, without formally altering the borders, circumventing constitutional restrictions on ceding land. The report also included maps that show the expansion of the Russian-held territory in Ukraine since the beginning of the war. Now, the idea aims to create a truce after over 3 years of the conflict, but is strongly opposed by President Zelensky, who refuses to relinquish sovereignty. Critics also note that the West Bank model is indeed widely deemed illegal under international law and criticized for creating unequal governance. U.S. officials frame the proposal as pragmatic, prioritizing the cessation of bloodshed over ideal political outcomes, reflecting the realities of ongoing hostilities. The Guardian, on the other hand, published an analysis examining the risks of a private Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska, drawing lessons from their 2018 Helsinki summit, concluding that having the two leaders in one room is a recipe for disaster. At the earlier encounter, Trump appeared overly influenced by Putin, downplaying U.S. intelligence on Russian election interference, and analysts fear a repeat scenario as the leaders plan to discuss land swapping in Ukraine without European or even Ukrainian representatives present. The one-on-one setting allows Putin to frame any potential agreement as a fait accompli or a decided fate, while Trump's ad hoc improvisational style raises doubts about enforceable outcomes. Ukrainian and European officials have already rejected ceding territory, highlighting tensions between Trump's approach and international expectations. The piece emphasizes the unpredictability and potential dangers of such closed-door diplomacy. The Wall Street Journal, like many other American newspapers, reported on President Trump's recent federal takeover of Washington, D.C.'s police and the deployment of the National Guard, framing it as an extension of his long-standing drain the swamp agenda. The report also points out that Trump cites rising crime and urban disorder, despite rarely engaging directly with the city, and has taken control also of cultural institutions and policy initiatives. Now, while the D.C. mayor and Democrats argue crime is now below pre-pandemic levels, Trump wields legal authority under the Home Rule Act to assume temporary control. The piece also highlights that critics, including Democrats, warn that the move may serve as a precedent for federal intervention in other cities and as a political tool to project strength amid challenges with inflation, jobs, and also public support. Moving on to the Times of Israel, which reported today on the Arab reaction to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's statement expressing a connection to the concept of Greater Israel, which envisions expanded Israeli borders based on historical or biblical claims, including territories captured in 1967. The remarks provoked strong condemnation from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, the Arab League, and the Palestinian Authority, who warned that such expansionist rhetoric threatens regional stability and security. The Palestinian Authority also reaffirmed support for a state within the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. While largely rejected by mainstream Israelis, the concept has gained visibility due to far-right ministers in Netanyahu's coalition, highlighting ongoing tensions between Israeli political discourse and regional diplomacy. And we'll stay with the Middle East as Dion Nissenbaum wrote in Foreign Policy, examining Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's strategic advances amid global condemnation on Gaza. So, despite declining popularity and international criticism, Netanyahu is portrayed as advancing long-term objectives. These objectives are preventing a Palestinian state and expanding Israeli territorial control. The piece also details a systematic military occupation, destruction of Gaza infrastructure as well, and creation of buffer zones, drawing parallels to historic tactics like the 1957 between the lines Jerusalem expansion. Nissenbaum argues that Netanyahu, leveraging domestic support and U.S. backing, has neutralized opposition while consolidating power. And the piece emphasizes that international pressure has little impact on Netanyahu's objectives, illustrating the enduring influence of Israeli political strategy on regional dynamics. And finally, as a result of the high school A-level exams in the UK come out today, The Telegraph published an analysis examining which university degrees lead to the highest and lowest salaries in the country. According to this analysis, business and marketing at Oxford tops the list, with median 5 years earnings around £93,000, while computing at Cambridge now averages £86,000. Medicine and dentistry also offers strong returns, averaging at £53,000 annually. Conversely, creative and performing arts graduates face low pay, with some earning as little as £17,000 after 5 years, which is below the student loan payment threshold. The piece also included a chart showing how a typical student in the UK now leaves the university £53,000 in debt. Now, the piece highlights that degree choices has significant financial consequences, especially amid rising tuition fees and living costs, emphasizing the need for informed decisions when considering higher education. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.